I'm going to teach you 15 ways that you can say, I don't like something in a smart and polite way. Number 1, the first alternative for I don't like is I am sick of. I am sick of. Or if you want extra emphasis, I am absolutely sick of. An example, I am sick of hearing you complain. I am absolutely sick of hearing you complain. I don't like hearing you complain. Now, whilst this might not seem polite, I don't like is quite direct. It's quite to the point, and we don't like to be too direct. I am sick of is still quite intense, but it's not as direct. If you want to be a bit less intense, you could also say number 2, which is I don't appreciate. I don't appreciate. Or with emphasis, I really don't appreciate. An example, I really don't appreciate the way she spoke to me. This is a much more polite way of saying I don't like. The meaning is conveyed very clearly. We know you mean that you don't like it, but I don't appreciate is a much more highbrow way of saying it. Number 3, back to being intense, I can't stand. I cannot stand. An example, I can't stand people who don't know how to cue properly. Number 4, another less intense version is I'm not fond of. This is really quite polite. I'm really not fond of whatever you don't like. And this means that it's not that I dislike it, it's just that I don't love it. Haha, exactly the same thing, but sounds better. An example, I'm not fond of dancing, but I'll give it a go. To give something a go is to try something or attempt something. It's a much nicer way of saying I don't like. Another one that is very similar, number 5, is I'm not a fan of, or I'm not a big fan of. I'm not a big fan of. So remember, I'm not fond of, I'm not a fan of. We need the article there. I'm not a big fan of early starts. I'm not a big fan of early starts. This means getting up early in the morning. Now, number 6 is quite similar to the previous 2, but a lot of students make mistakes with it. It is I'm not keen on. Now, the previous 2 had the of preposition. We have on. Fond of, fan of, keen on. If you remember these 3 phrases, then it will look very good in exams if you use them correctly. I'm not keen on, or if you want emphasis, I'm not so keen on. And actually, that isn't really emphasis. That almost reduces the phrase further. I'm not keen on, I'm not so keen on, I'm not very keen on. An example, not so keen on him. Now, the previous 3 were very, very polite, but let's go back to some more intense ones. Number 7, I can't bear. I cannot bear something. This means that you really don't like something. It's very, very similar to I can't stand. An example, I can't bear the way Tony speaks to his wife. I don't like it. I cannot stand it. It's terrible. This means that you just cannot put up with it. You can't endure it. Now, number 8 is an interesting one. It is I've had enough of. I've had enough of something. So you're not directly saying I don't like something. It's just you've reached your limit of being able to accept something. For example, I've had enough of scam phone calls. I could take it up to a certain point, but now it's overstepped the mark and I've had enough. That's very British. I'm sure lots of British children have heard their parents say that they've had enough. Now, back to a really polite one. Number 9. If someone is asking you to do something, but it's not your thing, you don't like what they're offering or what they're asking you to do, you can say, I'm not into, or I'm really not into. It's not my thing, is what you're saying. An example, sorry, I'm really not into that type of music. I don't want to say I don't like the music that you're playing, but I'm not into it. It's not my thing. It's quite a nice thing to say. Another more polite one is number 10, I'll pass on, or I think I'll pass on. An example, I think I'll pass on visiting Grandma after she was so rude to me last time. I'll pass on that. I don't want to do it. It's not literally I don't like, it means I don't want to do something. I think I'll just avoid doing that. You're implying that you don't want to do something, that you don't like doing it, so I have included it in the list. Number 11, a very British one. It's not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. Again, another way of saying it's not my thing. I'm not into that. An example, thanks for the invite, but ice skating really isn't my cup of tea. It doesn't tickle my fancy. It really doesn't tickle my fancy. Oh. Number 13, if you don't want to use tickle my fancy, you can just say, it's not for me. Not for me. An example, sorry, I just think that the knitting club isn't for me. I'm really sorry. Number 14, a very nice way. I'd say it's maybe slightly more American than it is British. I'm not crazy about. I'm just not crazy about. I'm not crazy about golf, but I'll come along all the same. I don't love golf. I really don't like golf, actually. But I will come along anyway. All the same is the same as anyway. And number 15, this is quite a good one if you want to offer an alternative. If you don't like something and you would prefer to do something else. It is, I'm more of a person. For example, I don't think I'll come to the dog shelter with you. I'm more of a cat person. I think that's quite a nice way of saying, I don't like something, I don't want to do it, but I would be, up for doing something else. Right, that is it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something.